Hello friends, in this video I am going to show you the implementation of constructors to find the factorial of a number. So let's go to the program and let's see what I have done over there. So let's open the code blocks first. Let me see what I have done over here and explain the lines of code to you. These are the file inclusion directive hash include iostream followed by using namespace std. Then I have defined a class which is called Factorial, class Factorial, under the private section I have defined two variables, that is n and f, int n comma f. Under the public section we see that there is a constructor having no parameters associated with it, but it can be considered to be a default constructor because there are no parameters associated with it, and as soon as any object of this class will be created in any module, then obviously the object will become initialized, that is the f value of the object will be initialized to 1 by the constructor written over here. So this is the default constructor. It is obviously a no argument constructor. It helps us to assign the value 1 into the member variable f. Now we see that there is another function void get data, and here we have taken a number from the user by means of these two expression statements: cout enter a number, endl, and then cin extraction operator n. After that I have written another function, that is int fact. I have written another function like int fact, which is defined in this way. The logic of the factorial calculation is being written over here, that is if n less than 0, then we are going to return a negative value, else if n equals 0 or n equals 1, we will get 1 returned from this function, and other than these negative value or 0 and 1 value, if any other value is supplied by the user as an input to this function get data, then we will execute this block, this else block, which has a for loop inside it. Int I is equal to 2, for int I is equal to 2 I less than equal to ni plus plus. This is a simple for loop logic of finding the factorial of a number. F is equal to f star I, and then I have returned the value of f to the calling module. After that there is yet another function which I have defined in this class, that is put data, void put data. The factorial of n is f and l. So this function will help us to get the output of the program, that is the answer to the factorial of a number will be output from this function put data. Now we go to the main section. In the main section I have written a few lines over there. Factorial f1. So factorial f1 is obviously the object f1 which is being created of the factorial class. So as soon as this object is being created, the default constructor will be automatically invoked, and the member variable f in the object will be assigned a value of 1. So let's go down to main again. Now we have declared another integer variable capital F, int f, f1 dot get data. So we are trying to get the number, the input from the user to the variable, to the member variable n by means of this function get data. And after that what I have done is f is equal to f1 dot fact. If you just recall, if we just go back to this function fact, we see that the return type of this function is int. So it is going to return something which is an integer. So suppose it is going to return, either it is going to return -1 in case of any invalid input given by the user, or in case the user inputs a value of 0 or 1 to n, then it is going to return 1, which is also an integer. So minus 1 is an integer which can be returned, 1 is an integer which can be returned, and f calculation will also result in an integer to be calculated, and that f is to be returned from this function fact. So this f, since this f is also an integer, so we have given the return type of this function as int. So this, whatever is returned from this function fact, will be returned to the integer variable f, which is being declared in the main section. So f is equal to f1.fact, something will be returned out of the function and it will be stored in f, and we'll check whether if f is less than 0. Suppose we have given a logic of there that if the number input by the user is negative, that is less than 0, then it is going to return minus 1. So in that case f will contain a value of minus 1, and in that case we know that for a negative number the factorial cannot be calculated. So that's why I have written that sort of logic in order to show the user that the user has input an invalid input to the program. So for that I have made some logic regarding this, and if f is less than 0, see out the input entered is an invalid one. So if f is minus 1, if minus 1 is returned from the factorial function fact function to f, then f will be negative, then f less than 0 condition will be satisfied, and this line will come as an output, the input entered is an invalid one. And other than those cases where we enter a negative value as an input, it will call the function put data by the object f1 by the statement f1.putData, and this putData function will then give the output in this format. The factorial of, suppose the number is 1, is 1. So after that return 0, and let's run the program and see for different cases if the program runs well for all the cases, all the possible cases. So let's go to build and run first. See, we see a prompt coming on the output screen as enter a number. We can just check one by one the different cases. Suppose we enter a negative number first. So we expect a value of, you have entered an invalid input or something like that, which I have written in the program. So let's see what comes from that. Minus, suppose 5. So I will press the enter. The input entered is an invalid one. Suppose, note the line of code to tally with the output. Suppose enter a number, minus 5 is being given. So minus 5, since it is negative, the very logic of the function fact will return minus 1 to this f, and in that case this if statement will be executed. The input entered is an invalid one, so we see that the output is quite the expected output. Now let's press any key to continue and run the build and run. Go to build and run the program with another value. Suppose I'm going to run the program with 1. So expected output will be 1 because factorial of 1 is 1, and I have written in the logic of the factorial function, the fact function, that if n is equal to 1, if n equals 1 or n equals 0 for that matter, because 0 is also going to return a factorial of 1 because factorial of 0 is also 1. So in those two cases I have written the statement in the fact function as if n equals 1 or n equals 0, then in both cases it will be f1 should be assigned a value of 1. So let's see, then the output should come as the factorial of 1 is 1. So let's see, the factorial of 1 is 1 is the output. So it is perfectly okay. It is exactly same as the expected output. So let's again press any key to continue and run the program with the other case, that is 0, and let's see whether it runs. Suppose I am giving 0. The factorial of 0 is 1. That is also quite the value, quite the output as we have expected it to be. So let's press any key to continue. Now we'll put input any other value other than those negative values and zeros and ones, and let's go to build and run once again and give suppose any other number. Suppose I'm going to give the number 5. So obviously the factorial of 5, as you know, that it is 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, which gives us the value of 120. So we should expect the output to give a statement like this: the factorial of 5 is 120. Let's see whether it comes. The factorial of 5 is 120. So it is also exactly the same output which we have expected it to be. So that's all for this program, because we have seen for all the cases the program runs correctly, and I hope I have made it clear for you to understand the concept of constructors in finding the factorial of a number in C++ programming. And still, if you have any doubts and queries in your mind, you can well post your doubts and queries into the comment section below so that I can address them. Thanks for watching this video, and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thanks again.